And there was I think only one of the 30 articles that they looked at which said no, that there is no kind of lowering. Okay. And they said something to the effect of, we've looked beyond these articles, and actually, when you look at it closely, there isn't really any evidence that there's anything wrong in the serotonin system in people who are depressed. Okay. So the journal asked me to review the article. I did, and I said, "Look, this is interesting. I mean, it is absolutely right. There's nothing wrong with the serotonin system. We've known this for a long time. But the interesting thing about this, it looks like the 29 of the 30 articles, which all claim that it's well known that there's a lowering of serotonin in people who are depressed, all look like they've been ghost-written.
Hmm.
Okay, the one article which says just the opposite, I happen to know the people involved
Hmm.
and they can't afford a
Yeah.
ghostwriter.
So
Okay.
right. So naively, if you were to just look at the literature and say, okay, let's look at all of the studies that are relevant to this question, and we're going to tally the results, and we'll use a democratic vote. Say, oh, the vast majority of studies say this. There's only one study that says that. If you do things that way, you're gonna believe the one thing, even though all of this.
Well, if you're a ghostwriter and you're working for a few different companies, you're going to sign, I mean, you're going to have tropes like that. Well, let me put it like this. Let me go back to kind of basics. Back when I was talking at meetings for the pharmaceutical companies and things to that, I agreed to get involved in a meeting. Um, And shortly after, I mean, I was told it was actually going to be in London. It's going to be a reasonably high-powered meeting and things like this. And I said, "Yep, sure, happy to get involved." And a week later, I get an email saying, and we're going to try and publish the the proceedings from the meeting. So
You're on the record.
you'll Well, you'll actually have to, hang on, you'll have to actually write an article. Okay. So I
Hmm.
said, fine, perfect. Then a week later again, I get a further email saying, and here's your article.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
I said, I kind of dropped a note back saying, look, when I agreed to get involved in this meeting, I had an idea I'd be asked to do an article, and I had some ideas about the article that I'd like to write. And I've got it more or less done. I'll email it over to you when it's finished. And I did. And they looked at it and they said, "Oh, this is interesting. This isn't bad. I think we'll have it." Okay. But there were some important commercial messages in the other one that we emailed over to you. And we're just going to change the name of the author. It remains, well, as I used to tell the story to people, look, if I took a bunch of my articles and put them on a table, there are people who thought they knew my work and asked them to pick out the article that I didn't write. They wouldn't have picked out the ghostwritten article because
Hmm.
it was wonderfully done. It was
Yeah.
my tone of voice, it was saying the kinds of things that I say, it was
Right.
Healy references and things
These are
like that.
good ghostwriters.
Absolutely. They're PhDs, they know how to
Yeah.
do
They're
the job,
probably
okay?
probably well paid to do a good job.
Yeah. But in the end, both the article that I wrote and the other one that was written for me got published. And they only changed one word in the article that they'd written for me. They just changed the name of the author. It's a Healy article with Healy references, but they just changed the name of the author. But for them, it was actually important because there's important commercial messages in it. So
Mhm.
when I got in touch with the journal with my review of the Moncrief et al. Article, I said, look, you can kill two birds with one stone here. You can have an article which says that the serotonin theory is just crazy, and an article which points to the likely ghostwriting input into all this, which is you've got ghostwriters whose job is to include certain important commercial messages in whatever else they write. It could be wonderful otherwise,
Right.
but it'll have a
Right.
few choice nuggets because
Yeah.
industry can't claim there's any lowering of serotonin in people who are depressed. But in their adverts, they can have David Healy say there's a lowering of serotonin in people who are depressed, provided there's a footnote to a reference to a
Right. Right.
published
Right.
article.
We're not saying that. We're
So
just we're just we're just showing you the literature.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Now, the interesting thing about it was Joe and her co-authors decided this was a bit too risky. They didn't want to go there. But the editor of the journal who'd sent me the article to review said, this is a really interesting point. Do you want to write a commentary, which we'll also publish with the Moncrief article? I said, sure, fine. And I wrote a comedy short commentary, less than 1,000 words. I forget. I mean, really shortish, and emailed it to them. And the editor got back in touch with me and said, well, uh, I've been told by my co-editors that we can't publish this. She refused to specify exactly why not. She just said, this just isn't the time. Now,
Hmm.
the thing about it was that I'd made the point about the serotonin field, but said it applies to all of medicine. It's going to apply to the COVID vaccine trials as well that have just recently appeared in the New England Journal of Medicine,
Right.
which I know were ghostwritten. I know the ghostwriter, and I know some of the people who were injured in the trial
Hmm.
who
Who?
disappear in the published
Wow.
article.